Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we're going to have our monthly financial literacy update, but what about Generation Z replacing millennials and the education of those folks? We'll get to that and perhaps a couple of other things after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, welcome back to the program. Joining me, he hasn't been here for a long time, is former Senator Rob Wonderling. He now heads the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. It's been a long time, Senator, hasn't it?
Too long.
Rob, Senator, Chairman. What do they call you?
Just call me home for dinner.
Home, yeah, I got that. Home. Well, look, it's
Rob's
great.
Fine.
Yeah, it's great to have you back, Rob. Look, before we get into this business, and I'm really fascinated with some of these ideas that you have about what we must do moving forward with education, particularly with what we call STEM education, you know, science, technology, math. Before I do that, does this ever get resolved in Harrisburg? Are we that, I mean, as you know, we were talking about a budget that wasn't done 10 months, or, 7 months out, we get a stopgap. You were in the Senate. It seems like a lot has changed. Is that right?
Well, some things changed and some things have not, and you're truly expert. You have your finger on the pulse of the people of Pennsylvania through your research. I think we're at a critical point, not just in the Commonwealth, but across the country, where we've seen the dilution of the party structures. We've seen with the advance of technology, social media, the ability for individual public servants to build their own media persona, the influence of unlimited and unfettered campaign resources fuel that. And we're in a hyper-ideological age, particularly now, where oftentimes it's the flea on the tail of the dog that winds the process. And I think the budget impasse, which, by the way, there will be a path forward. There always will be. We're in uncharted waters now, but cooler heads will prevail, and we will have a spending plan over the next several months. But we're in a period of transition, and I think a bit more of a strategic conversation about what's possible for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and its citizens is really what's required.
Yeah, now you represent down in the Philly Chamber a huge part of the economy of the state. I mean, and we were talking before, and you hit on something that I think is really important and we don't talk enough about. The economy, to be successful in the long run, has to have one word, the D word. You remember what it was? What was it?
Well,
diversity, right?
Absolutely. Diversity of economy and the P word, people. And I think what has been overlooked in the mechanics of getting a spending plan in place for a state government, which is still not the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. What the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania really are approximately 12 million people. And the forecast is dire. If you look at our 67 counties, only 15 counties will have a net increase in population over the next several years. If we do not do some things strategically so that we become a place where people want to come, then we'll never have a fighting chance to create an entrepreneurial economy, a growth economy, and prosperity for individual Pennsylvanians.
Right. All right, let's turn to the topic at hand, and that's this Generation Z replacing the millennials. When I go back to campus, I'm not going to tell them that, or they'll, wonder what I'm talking about. I know you get my point. You were chair of the Governor's Advisory Commission on Post-Secondary Education. That commission met, I think, during the year 2012, and you had some recommendations in there. First of all, what's the basis on which you think we have to change the way we're providing higher ed?
Well, as I just mentioned earlier, Terry, we need to really address the fact that Pennsylvania as a state, as it relates to citizens, is in decline as it relates to total population. And so when you think about what can be a magnet to attract individuals to our Commonwealth, to create new opportunities for existing citizens, let's begin with our post-secondary education system. Let's begin with our system of higher education, which really has never been retooled since the 1960s. Our public state universities, for example, have really only had some marginal work done in terms of how they are organized. And so when you consider that the millennial population is aging and they're becoming older, and they will be replaced by Generation Z or Centennials, individuals born in this century.
I got it.
Then let's be strategic. Let's reposition, let's say, our 14 state colleges and universities to provide lifelong learning opportunities, continuing learning opportunities for those millennials as they age.
Right.
And let's then think through the deployment of modern technology and increased capital investment, how to reshape the place and spaces of like Miller's.
Now specifically, you have some suggestions, and let's just go through a couple of them. One is a passport for lifelong learning with higher ed institutions. What's that mean?
Well, those on college campuses know this phrase MOOC, massive online courses, highly controversial and clunky, just like the beginning of internet search engines, right? Well, where are the financial markets going? Where is Silicon Valley placing future bets? It's on customized learning from your personal device, your iPhone, your Galaxy, it doesn't matter. And the ability to learn intuitively over a period of one's lifetime is going to become very mainstream, and therefore higher education institutions that embrace that.
I got it. So let me get this straight. So that would be
a passport for learning.
Right. That would be a way to have whatever conveniences and whatever is necessary. You talked about applications, apps, and to continue to do this right through your entire life.
It's going to be driven by the consumer.
Driven by the consumer.
And so we need to create a statutory and regulatory environment, a policy environment in Pennsylvania where that occurs.
Right.
Look at how we shop different.
Oh, yeah.
Look
Online
at how we
now.
purchase different.
Yep.
Right? So the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, next generation MOOCs are going to drive consumers to want to learn differently.
All right, we're going to run to a break. We're going to continue with this. This is fascinating, and it's the way, it looks like it's the way of the future. We'll be back with that and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. Former Senator Rob Wonderling, now heads the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce, is my guest. We're talking about some important changes that are taking place in education. Lifelong learning is one of them, how you go about doing it. I want to get to another part of this. And you say here, a modern performance-based system for the approximately $1.7 billion of money that goes into our state's higher education. That is, if the legislature appropriates the money. They still haven't done it for Pitt, Penn State, Temple, and Lincoln, as we speak anyway. Go ahead.
Absolutely right. And here I cannot take no credit. It was really the academic leadership of all of our higher ed sectors on that commission that I chaired several years ago. And it was a very difficult negotiation, but what came out the other end was essentially a balanced scorecard where you had private liberal arts, community colleges, state-related, public institutions agreeing that let's drive, when we receive one public dollar, it's about $1.7 billion.
Oh, yeah.
Let's build a performance-based system for which we earn net new dollars.
I got it.
And it completely changed and is well-positioned to be the new funding formula for that $1.7 billion that goes to higher education.
All right, here's something else that I think is important. The Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency provides billions of dollars to students, and it is somewhat of a mystery about how that gets dispensed, and you took a look at that and you have what to say.
Yeah, I may not have many friends over at what I'll call Fortress FIA, because there is a fortress mentality where they aggregate what they have in terms of billions of dollars under private management. They have a for-profit entity that processes student loans throughout the United States, and what then comes into the non-for-profit environment in the individual benefit that Pennsylvania citizens, students receive in terms of subsidy and assistance.
Right.
I think as we're in this new century, thinking about centennials and aging millennials, that we need to examine FIA as well, not just examine places like Franklin and Marshall or Millersville or Harrisburg
and it hasn't
Community
undergone
College.
much of that, has it?
It has
sort
not.
of stayed
It really has. And I think the watchword of a modern government, of a modern approach to growth and prosperity, there's all these institutions that were created in the last century. Pension boards, state system of higher education, and FIA need to be re-examined.
All right. As you know, you don't have to tell you this, creating new business, attracting new business, the magnet, there isn't much more important that can attract new jobs. How's that going? What are your suggestions?
Well, it gets
about
back
that?
to this subject at hand. The state or the region that wins the global war to obtain talented individuals are going to create job, wealth, and prosperity for individuals. About 3.2 billion people that are qualified to work around the globe annually chase 1 billion jobs.
Wow.
And if we do not transform the way we teach, we learn, accelerate with technology, modernize these systems that deliver our higher education for the future, there's no way we're going to stop population decline in the Commonwealth.
Right.
If we can stem population decline, if we can reposition these institutions of magnets for lifelong learning for millennials and future centennials, then free markets, free enterprise, individual ingenuity, and innovation will take over, and we will create jobs.
All right, we talked earlier about a passport, but it all leads to a form of continuing education in whatever mechanism we want to use. But as you argue, the public universities have to be repositioned to play a major role in what we call continuing education, right?
Look, think about it, and you're an expert of the functions of state government. Let's agree that our public state colleges and universities are a core function of the Pennsylvania government. But it's the only core function of Pennsylvania government that doesn't have a long-term relationship with its citizens. It's very episodic. It's from age 18 to 27, maybe.
Yeah.
But our healthcare systems, our transportation systems, provide a public benefit during the course, an extended period of the citizen's life in Pennsylvania. We should do the same thing for our public.
They're probably
colleges
doing a
and
little bit of
universities.
that, but not systematically.
They're on the margins, and the millennial cohort is a huge demographic of future Pennsylvanians that as they age, I would argue that those state systems of higher education should be ready to provide that passport for learning.
All right, before I let you go, what's your sense, okay, you, as a former senator, you were involved in many commissions and many reports. Pick them up and put them on the shelf.
Absolutely.
Now, where does this go? What's your sense about, about where these ideas go?
Well, look, this is the beginning of a conversation with many Pennsylvanians about these ideas. And reports are just that, reports that end up on a shelf. But what happened with our commission was, again, I just had the honor to chair the commission. What happened were the academic leaders of this Commonwealth, from small private liberal arts to Penn State to Pitt to the community colleges, agreeing that there has to be a better way.
So there's buy-in, is what you're suggesting.
There's buy-in there, but that's just one segment of our Commonwealth. I think what's going to be required, and it ties back to our conversation about a budget impasse, what are we doing as citizens? You're an opinion leader. You're a member of the media meritocracy that can drive public opinion a certain way. What are we working on together to get off the flea that's wagging the tail of the dog to something that could really transform and change and create opportunity for Pennsylvanians?
Look, I want to thank you for coming in. Now, you have to promise me, as these things move along, get implemented, you'll come back. You have to come up from Philadelphia, but you can handle that drive, right? You get up frequently,
Absolutely.
I'm sure, to interact.
I'd be honored.
All right, when we come back, I think it's time to do our monthly financial literacy update. Identity theft, hold on to those credit cards. We'll check in with the folks from, where are we going to get it from? The Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Our regulars will be up in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
All right, welcome back to the program. All right, all that you want to know about something called a data breach. Well, we're going to find out more. Joining me to help us understand that is Mike Wishnow. He's one of our regulars. He's the Senior Vice President from the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. And Sheba Wallish, she's Director of Card Services for the aforementioned association. Did you like that?
That's very good.
I thought you would. All right, Sheba, I'm going to give you the hard question.
Okay.
Explain for our folks what a data. I mean, I know in general what a data breach is, but what is it that folks out there should be concerned about?
It's becoming such a common term, as you said, which is unfortunate, but, it's a breach in, maybe a merchant system, at, a company, really anywhere, because people are putting their information out there in so many places. And there's fraudsters out there that are finding ways to take that information and put you at risk.
And put us at risk, meaning if they get into, I guess it depends on where they get it. Now, there was one at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. That, Michael, that's probably not going to affect anyone out there, is it?
Unless they work for the federal government.
Yeah, I understand.
But if they work for the federal government, it absolutely can.
Okay, I got it. And then there was one at T-Mobile, right?
If you have a T-Mobile phone, again.
Yeah. So a lot of them are sort of situational, depending on where you work or what card you have or what relationship you have with a particular institution. Is that right? It
is. It's targeting, whatever your association is with that company is how you're affected. So we've been seeing a lot more in the healthcare industry. I mean, think about it. With your insurance companies and your healthcare providers, they have a lot of personal information of yours.
Yes, they do. Now, and we're not talking about something that's occasional. 2 in a 24-hour period? Is that
correct?
Right?
And to your point, Terry, yes, it is an isolated incident. But when isolated incidents are happening literally every day, it's no longer quite as isolated.
Yeah.
I mean, the chance of you being caught up, and I was caught up within the last 6 months, I had my card reissued.
So you had all right, should I ask her about this, or you want to get in? One of you answer this. So I'm notified that there's a data breach. It could be something that's serious. It could be something that's minor. Give me an example of a serious data breach. One that,
A serious data breach is going to take like your social security number, that really personal information that they can go and use. They could, act like they're you, open accounts in your name. And it's identifying that as quickly as possible is what would minimize the impact. But things like that, if you're not monitoring your credit and knowing what's going on, you may not even know. And then the damage is already done.
It's done. What's a minor one?
Well, a minor one would be just your name, email, and phone number.
I got it. So, and that's pretty available anyway in some cases.
Right. I mean, the worst case is you're going to get emails you don't want.
All right, we're going to run to a break. I want to continue with this. I want to particularly get into what industries, does it happen in? We'll bore down into all this because I think it's important. We need to be aware, and we'll be back so you can be aware in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, advancing quality, improving lives. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Well, welcome back to the program. Mike Wishnow and Sheba Wallish join me. They're with the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. We're talking about a very important subject, little joke at the end, but this is serious at the end of the last segment, I should say. Mike, you wanted to make a point moving forward here about the seriousness of this, and go ahead.
Sure. Well, breaches are becoming inevitable. And so there's a high likelihood that in the next year or two, most of our information will be breached to some extent or another. Sheba made the point about monitoring your credit, which is extremely important. Now, you can do that yourself.
Right.
Or there are also a number of different programs out there,
Okay.
One of which that we developed, offering primarily through our credit unions, but can go direct to consumer. Sheba, do you want to talk about our Sherpa program?
Yeah, we saw the need to have this product and had credit unions that were interested, and we developed Sherpa. It's identity protection and restoration.
Sherpa is what? Go through that.
Sherpa is the name of our product, and a Sherpa guides you. So the angle that we took with this product is if something happens, we're going to guide you in the right direction. We're going to be by your side, and we're going to help you through it. It's a lot of stress and a lot of different things that you need to know if something happens and how to fix it. Yeah. So in this case, with our product that we offer, we take that worry away from you. We have certified people that take care of that. They will promise you that they will get your credit back to the pre-compromised state, walk you through that process step by step to take that worry away.
And if your credit gets damaged, that affects lots of things. If you want to get a mortgage, if you want to get a loan, you want to buy a car or
apartment, job, insurance. I mean, things you don't even think about. But part of what a good monitoring service like Sherpa does is it has an early detection component. So that as soon as something starts to happen with your credit, it notifies you and says, "Did you do this?" And you say, "Oh, no, I didn't do this." Right. And then you contact Sherpa and boom, the wheels go into motion much more quickly. And that's part of it. I mean, if you can catch it quickly, then it's going to be easier to resolve than if you don't notice for several months.
Yeah. And the other thing about this is you say credit and debit card information is the most frequently breached, 62%. But then you've got healthcare, business, government. I mean,
most of those companies that are getting breached, you have your payment information on file with them. So that's kind of the easiest thing for fraudsters to take. But yeah, we've seen a huge increase in the healthcare industry. We're finding out that healthcare information, your insurance information is very valuable out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm online, and I'm sure many of our viewers are, where all my healthcare information, I access, I won't get into where it is, I access it, and it says, this is my prescription, this is the diagnosis. I mean, it's just online, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if that were to fall into the wrong hands, it can be sold on something called the dark web, and some fraudster can pick that up and start getting prescriptions in your name.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Well, we're about out of time. I'm glad they can get information about my knee replacement, but you're right. This is serious, and we'll continue and pick this up in future appearances on the program. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.